Is this breaking news, including what's expected to be the president's address from the Rose Garden at the White House. He is expected to congratulate Iraq after a day of national elections. When that happens, we'll, of course, take the president live and wrap it all up, and then, of course, get to Amanpour, where she is also talking to the son of a Hamas founder. And you will see that entire program in its entirety. Meantime, the other breaking story we continue to follow, this coming out of Pakistan, and this perhaps underscoring the relationship between Pakistani and U.S. intelligence in the ongoing fight against terrorism. We understand now, according to Pakistani high-ranking intelligence officials, that this man right here, 31-year-old Adam Gadahn, who is American-born, but he has been an al-Qaeda spokesperson, and he has been wanted for many years now. He's been on the FBI most wanted list. There's been a $1 million reward out for any information leading to his arrest. We understand, according to Pakistani intelligence sources, that he has been arrested in Karachi, in the port city of Karachi in Pakistan. Our senior international correspondent, Nick Robertson, joining us right now from London. He has been an important player for many years with al-Qaeda. He has helped direct messages to English-speaking audience as well as others around the world through video postings online, etc. Give me an idea of the content of some of his messages, Nick.
Well, no, Frederica, you could say after bin Laden himself, he really has been, as far as al-Qaeda and bin Laden getting their message out to the American and European audience, probably one of the most important figures on al-Qaeda's TV output in the past 4 or 5 years. And coincidentally, he put out a message in the past 24 hours, a message where he says President Obama's first year ended disastrously. He cites the attack on the CIA base in Afghanistan, where 7 CIA operatives were killed. He said 8 were killed there. He also talked about the failed Christmas Day airline bombing plot. He points to this as a failure as well of the Obama administration. But he goes on to talk about a call to arms for Muslims in the United States, and he cites Major Nidal Hassan, who is alleged to have shot and killed 13 people on the base in Fort Hood last year. He praises Major Nidal, but he goes on to say that we don't think that al-Qaeda just needs to attack military bases. There are many, many more targets. And in those targets, he lists railroad networks. And we certainly know from other American, in fact, al-Qaeda operatives have been captured, that railroad targets have certainly been discussed for targeting at the highest al-Qaeda levels. So as a spokesman for al-Qaeda and as a way for al-Qaeda to get their message out to the English audience, he has been a very, very big figure. And his capture may have an impact, perhaps not a lasting impact, but may have an impact on al-Qaeda's sort of promotions, public relations, publicity wing that's known as As-Sahab. Frederica?
And so, Nick, do you understand the background of Adam Gadahn? I'm just looking at his, personal bio here. He was born in Winchester, California. Born Adam Gadahn. His parents, a goat farmer and a carpenter, living there in California. He married a Muslim woman from Afghanistan, and he reportedly has at least 1 child, but he was homeschooled until the age of 17. At what point, or has his family ever said at what point, did he make a turn to eventually become a spokesperson for al-Qaeda?
Well, one of the interesting traits or characteristics that he's exhibited here is something that other young American men have exhibited before. This is this curiosity for knowledge, that somewhere in his upbringing that he was curious to learn more and that he was willing to pursue that. And interestingly, in his particular case as well, he was Jewish and he converted to Islam. This is also a road that others have followed. Yusuf al-Khattab, a very outspoken critic of the United States who's been preaching from the streets of New York until late last year for one a radical Islamic organization, has now left the country. So it's a trajectory that others have gone along subsequent to Adam Gadahn, and others have gone along in the future. This inquisitiveness, he converts to Islam. He moves out to Afghanistan, Pakistan, hooks up with al-Qaeda and somehow manages to convince them that he should become a spokesman for them, and releases, in the early days of his time in Pakistan or Afghanistan, releases many, many videos mouthing what al-Qaeda's leaders had been mouthing, critical of the United States, critical of Israel, calling for this global jihad. This has been his message, and that's been his value to al-Qaeda, and it appears that they have embraced him because they've continued to allow him, not only allow him to continue with these radical speeches, but to help him by putting him out on their own, al-Qaeda's own, I wouldn't call it a TV channel, but it almost becomes that on the internet, these videos that they release, that they've been putting them out there. And again, this one coming out today. But his passage and his change and conversion to Islam is something that's becoming a very worrying trend. This sort of homegrown radicalism is becoming a worrying trend for law enforcement agencies in the United States. They're seeing a significant increase over the past year or so, Frederica.
And clearly very identifiable. So one has to wonder what has been the secret behind being so incredibly elusive. Is the expectation that we'll learn that he'd been moving around quite a bit, whether it be between Afghanistan and Pakistan, or if simply there is such a network in place of protecting him against intelligence forces?
I think we're going to learn, and this is speculation at this point, that it's really been a network that has helped him keep his profile low, that he hasn't been walking around the streets where he could be easily recognized, and that he has kept his movement and his communications down to a minimum. He hasn't... it would have been foolish, one would imagine, if he'd logged onto the internet from where he lives and used his own name. So there will be some very... obvious things that he will have done so that people don't find out where he is. But I think one of the realities that we're learning here is that there is a support network of sympathizers, people sympathetic to al-Qaeda, anti-American, anti-European, sympathetic to the Taliban. And it's quite an extensive network that's available to these people. And he does seem to have benefited from that, Frederica.
And intimidation. People who are intimidated, they know that there are serious repercussions if they were to reveal any secrets or reveal his identity, his whereabouts. That, too, has been a component, correct?
It will have been a component. Certainly anyone in a village that steps out of line with the village leaders, and if they're sympathetic to Taliban, al-Qaeda, then they will be dealt with very, very swiftly. I was very surprised last summer when I was in Pakistan that I was actually offered an interview with Adam Gadahn. That told me one thing, that this guy is not in an inaccessible place. I wasn't given any indication where he might have been, but it was an indication to me that we couldn't take any further at that time, that he is somewhere where people can get to him fairly easily. Obviously, one takes these types of comments, offers of interview and such like, with a pinch of salt, if you will, skeptically. But that was the conclusion at that time.
And what happened to that offer? I mean, clearly he wanted the attention that interview would bring, the publicity.
You know, these things come up when you're reporting on al-Qaeda, on Taliban, and sometimes you can trust the people that you're dealing with. Sometimes they pan out, that the information flow, this offer, you know, it gets followed through. In this particular case, that didn't happen, and it didn't get followed through. But the very fact that it came across seemed to me to be an indication that he wasn't that inaccessible, that there was a network protecting him.
Okay, international correspondent Nick Robertson, thanks so much.